Hello and welcome to my experiment for 2023. When last we met, it was June of 2021. I hadn't yet come out as transgender, and I was just starting my game design degree. A lot has happened to me since. A fucking lot. Anyway, here's the experiment. For every week of 2023, I am going to try and meet you in your subscriptions box with a short, largely unedited video. In these videos, I will simply read an essay/memoir style piece to you that I have written in this notebook. I will write these essay/memoir pieces with pen and paper so that I cannot meaningfully edit them. I will write them in single sittings, forcing me to finish my thoughts, and I will barely edit the video. This way, I feel that even if I am having a particularly busy week, it will still be easy enough to get a video out. I am also going to try filming in a variety of locations to keep things visually interesting. These videos are going to be messy, personal, and weird. You are probably also weird if you watch them all. I would also like to acknowledge that this is being filmed on the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Without further ado, let's begin with the first essay. This essay is titled The View from Sandridge Lookout. It was written on the 26th of the 12th, 2022, at 11:42 p.m. We are currently filming at Sandridge Lookout. In my moments of clarity there, I often think about the great many things. One time, a fair few years ago, Hank Green interviewed a sidewalk as a joke. Years later, he confessed that ever since then, he couldn't help but think about interviewing sidewalks and other things all the time. He talks about how some sidewalks are old and others are new. Some have names written in them when the cement was still wet, and others have cracks and years of wear. When he sees these footsteps impressed in once wet concrete next to a maker's mark from 100 years ago, he thinks about how the people who poured it and the child who ran across it are dead now. This doesn't necessarily make him sad. Many people are dead. Most of them, in fact. Sandridge Lookout is my second least favourite location in the world. Prince's Pier is my absolute number one favourite location, however. They are almost exactly 1 kilometre apart, as the crow flies, and a little over 2 kilometres by foot and by skateboard. It's out over that way. When I look out across to Prince's Pier from the lookout, I see two things: the short pier and the dead one. I'm not overly familiar with the history, but what I do know is this. Victoria has a very large Greek population. A lot of the people I know or have once known here are Greek. This period of immigration mostly lasted from the end of World War II until the 70s, and a lot of them landed right across the way there at Prince's Pier. The pier used to be much longer back then to accommodate larger boats. I'm sure many of the parents or grandparents of people I know or have known came here on those boats, and maybe even that pier. When I look at Prince's Pier, I think of them. I'm an immigrant too, but from a much newer nation, and a very different time. I also think about the people who built the pier, the ones who drove those now withered posts into the water. Maybe some of the people I know or have known are descended from those people. Maybe those people also helped build other structures I still frequent to this day. So it is when I think of, or look at, or stand upon Prince's Pier that I think of communities. I think of how much I love this city and its people, and this makes me think of the boats that came even earlier, ones with tall sails, and what the inhabitants of Nam, the area's true name, would describe as ghosts running up and down the sails of the ship. So it is when I think of the bay, the ocean, and of the many thousands of years of community that I am forced to think upon devastation of murder and genocide of the people of the Kulin Nation. I told you that I see two piers though, the short one and the dead one. When the boats stopped coming to Prince's Pier and Station Pier, only 430 metres away, started accommodating the larger boats, Prince's Pier fell into disuse. Eventually it was closed in the early 90s, suffered several fires until 2006 when a plan was announced to refurbish it. A plan that was seen to completion in 2011. They tore up the pier, removing the old decking, but they left the old pylons. They laid concrete upon the new pylons, only to around a third of the length that the pier was originally. This concrete is beautifully flat, making it a favourite spot for roller skaters and regular skaters like me. The old posts still remain though. They are easily the most striking feature of the pier. Hundreds of old, weathered and splitting wooden posts emerge from the water. Fishing lines tangle themselves between them, mussels cling to them, and the bay waves eat at their bases where they meet the water. Almost everyone thinks the same thing when they see it. Graveyard. I agree completely. They look like old and tired tombstones. From the distance and angle of Sandridge Lookout, it's almost hard to tell that Prince's Pier even is a pier, or at least it would be were it not for the ghost of the dead pier stabbed into the coastline, or maybe the ocean. It's hard to tell which. I know, however, that when I see Prince's Pier like this, I think of ghosts, and I think of knives and death, and I think of the walks that me and my ex would go on. I'd always asked to stop at Prince's Pier, and they would always say no, and we would press on to Sandridge Lookout, and I would feel ignored and invisible. This is what I really mean when I say that the pier looks like a knife and reminds me of ghosts and hauntings. People take drugs to feel that feeling, and I got it from a sidewalk. Hank Green is talking about connection here. Seeing the footprints in the once wet concrete makes him think about the way that someone had to lay that sidewalk, and it's proof of how connected we all are that 100 years later he's seeing weathered footsteps and he's feeling all of this. It is so perfect that you can see Prince's Pier from Sandridge Lookout. The place that like no other causes me to dissociate and feel 1,000,000 miles away from myself. The place where I feel most ignored by and alienated from the person who I loved and who failed to love me back. It is from this place that I can see Prince's Pier. Prince's Pier, the place that makes me think of so many things. Of people I know and once knew. Of those who built this city, of those who were here first, of good memories, of bad ones. My favorite place in the world. I am not there right now while I'm writing this, nor am I at Sandridge Lookout. I will probably record this from the lookout though, and I will look across to Prince's Pier, and I will feel it all again, maybe all at once, or maybe in ebbs and flows. Hank Green says, "Some people take drugs to feel that feeling." And I know that I would very much like to avoid these drugs, because currently I am not at Prince's Pier, nor am I at the lookout. I'm at home, just thinking about the damn place. Despite this, I am truly overwhelmed. I feel like the weight of human experience pools too deeply into places that don't actually remember us. So if just thinking about this pier gets me like this, I don't think I'd much need to, or be able to handle those drugs. This essay was finished on the 27th of the 12th, 2022 at 1:09 a.m.